Thanks for tuning in. I'm Justin Collier. Today on the show, we have a very special and very funny guest, Dan Pacheco. We talk a little bit about his book, The Spirit Animals of Marketing. We talk about how to communicate a little bit more empathetically with your audience. And Dan actually even shares a few really interesting stories about his experience with ultra endurance athleticism and ultra endurance races. Really hope you enjoy the podcast today and enjoy. Let's start with an introduction.
Okay.
An introduction to Dan Pacheco, for those who don't know Dan Pacheco.
Fantastic.
I wrote down a couple little bullets here. I'm going to read them. You can't read this. This is so don't even peek at it. I see.
I won't even peek. I'm just going to just look awkwardly into the ceiling.
Okay. Dan Pacheco is part wolf. Dan Pacheco is author of the book Spirit Animals of Marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Pacheco is director of sales for ERA Grizzard.
Grizzard.
Yes,
it's a common mistake.
You know, I've only read it. I actually haven't heard it yet.
It's fine, but now you have, and so you hear that in it. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of power in it.
Do you capitalize all of Grizzard the same way you capitalize ERA?
Yeah.
I think you must.
I like to.
Yeah. Leave by example there. Dan is also an ultra endurance athlete, which I would like to talk about a little bit.
Absolutely.
I'll get you here.
Sure.
And Dan is also a really good friend. We've known each other since high school, middle school.
It was high school.
Yeah,
high school, early high school. Wow.
We've got some interesting overlaps, I think, in our history.
I would consider them to be cosmic overlaps. Like seriously, there's a way that the universe just keeps putting us together. We're kind of like a shoelace, like a microcosm of of course, a shoe, the shoelace. You come together, right, for a brief little stint, and then you go way back out, right, and then circle back around and loop right back in.
I think it's important to separate always so that you can venture into the unknown and return back to each other and tell the other person
precisely
what you learned.
Precisely.
Exactly. I want to start with the wolf thing.
Okay.
I think most people probably want to start with the wolf thing.
Sure.
Can we start with the wolf thing?
We absolutely
can. Is that comfortable?
Yeah.
Dan, you really identify with wolf. You really you kind of lead with that foot. People see the association. I think some people may not entirely understand, but maybe want to understand.
Absolutely.
Where it comes from.
Yeah.
I've heard people in the past say things like identify with some specific type of animal. And I think you probably have a deeper understanding or deeper meaning about the reasons why you identify with it than other people.
Okay. Yep.
And so let me start with this. When I think of a wolf, I think of a number of different connotations.
And that's really the most interesting part. So go ahead, and I'm going to love this.
Okay, cool. Right, so I think wolf is sort of a pathfinder. In cultures, it's associated with being a pathfinder. It's associated with being a good educator. They're a pro-social animal. They work in packs, but they're also cooperative as well too.
Correct.
They've got a dominance hierarchy of themselves. There's a lot of connotations that go around with wolf, and I'm curious, which of those do you identify with? All of them? Which ones? Maybe just
absolutely. So one context or connotation that was not addressed, but I feel like is very popular. I mean, just look at literature, folklore. The wolf is also often represented as a evil, conniving creature character.
Oh, damn, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's the antithesis of it, and truly, there's not really, like you said, and I'm impressed and glad that you led with those attributes, because that's exactly what I've identified with personally, part of my brand, and also with the business development and marketing strategies that I work with people on. So it started way back when, ultra endurance running you mentioned earlier. I was running in Colorado, okay? Used to live there, go back every summer, and that's a great place to, of course, run. So out there on a trail run, and I actually encountered a singular wolf. Now, thankfully, it was a singular wolf, and it could have gone either one of two ways. The more that I've learned about them since then, when you see a singular wolf, it's either because they've been, exercised from the pack, they're meek, they're more timid, or they're hyper aggressive. So thankfully this one was on the timid side. But at that time I had no understanding of a wolf other than really these are vicious, blood snarling creatures. Yeah. So I'm the type of person, I think you would be the same, to when something, you get shaken by something, you find fear in something, it's more often than not because you don't know enough about it. And same thing with my wife. I mean, she terrified me when I first met her, but then here she is, here we are kind of thing,
So any other
exactly. But anyway, with this wolf, and the more that I understood about the hierarchy, the structure, and actually how they impact the ecosystem around them. If you ever have a chance to look into how wolves basically saved Yellowstone, it's a really remarkable story of how they literally revamped and supercharged the ecosystem there when it was actually waning out overpopulation of other animals, and that had effect on the grasslands, the rivers, everything crazy. But anyway, so that's when I discovered that, and like there's so much structure, there's so much loyalty and belief in the pack and the singular individual. It was such a phenomenal microcosm, again, fable, story, metaphor to who I have identified with and the life that I've led up to that point.
Yeah. Is there any part of it, when I think of wolves, I really do think of this idea of cooperation. I think we've all watched some amazing David Attenborough, Planet Earth type chase where a wolf pack is just exhibiting some level of intelligence that it's hard to attribute to animals sometimes. We sometimes forget that.
Sure.
I wanted to understand how you thought about wolves from the cooperation standpoint.
Okay.
Because your story seems that the effect got laid on you because we had this one wolf that you ran into. And so you mentioned a wolf could be separated from its pack for a couple of reasons. One being the wolf is you mentioned too aggressive. Another, the way I understand it is wolf packs are typically like an alpha male, alpha female. They've got their young who are getting older, and as they get to a certain age, they might leave the pack and venture out on their own.
Right.
How much do you think about wolves in terms of pack and cooperation? I think of wolves being sort of loyal to their own group in certain ways. Maybe just go there.
Of course, yeah. So maybe it's jumping the gun here, but speaking of cooperation within the pack, it's such a beautiful example in how they hunt, which is the first chapter in Spirit Animals Marketing, when you're associating different methodologies in the way of the world, the natural world around us. The wolf is the first one, and it sets up total cooperation and multiple impressions. And so, for instance, this is a true strategy for a lot of wolf packs in the wild. So let's imagine that we are atop of a prairie, or atop of a cliff overlooking a prairie. Down in the valley, we see 10,000 bison, and next to us, there's a pack of about a dozen wolves. Okay. Now they know if they were to just randomly blitz that herd, they would be trampled because those bison or buffalo outweigh them, 50-1 kind of thing. Not to mention there's so much more. It's chaos. They get trampled and die. So they know that they have to present strategy and total cooperation. So what they'll do is 10 of the wolves will go about a quarter mile down to a predestined point, and then the remaining 2 are called slashers. Now they slowly sneak up to that herd, and then they attack. Now they're not looking to make any vital approach. They're not trying to take any singular bison down to that point, but they just go and they claw, they bite, the neck, the thigh, whatever it is, in a very, again, vulnerable spot, and they back off. Yeah. And then those bison are still reacting, but they're on the trail of those that are bleeding out now. And so through a series of maybe 5 or 6 impressions or attacks, then they keep on pushing those 2 or 3 bison directly towards those other 10. Yeah. And so it's strategy, total cooperation. And once those bison, those buffalo, whatever it is, have bled out and they've succumbed to the multiple impressions of the wolves, let alone the wolf pack, there they are with licking fangs, ready to make the final impression, if you will.
And in this analogy, maybe bleeding out is finding that the product good or service is something that's valuable.
It's just making a very powerful impression, and at that point, through a series of engagements, you've led your demographic to the agenda that you've set out. But of course, in this case, the agenda is only singular serving, right, for the wolves. Yeah. But in the marketing sales world, that's instead of the snarling fangs, clicking the throats or the thighs of those poor bison, it's more so encouragement. That's what we replace. So it's the total, opposite end of it, the polar opposites there, but it's encouragement. And that's something that we can get into later about kind of the structure of what I believe to be a very powerful and effective, profitable form of communication. Okay. We'll see there.
Okay, totally. I've heard the term feral marketing before.
Yes.
I like that term a lot. Is what you just described, feral marketing, or is that maybe just a piece of it?
It's a strategy. So I mean, that's the wolf approach to marketing that could be done in multiple ways, going back to your classic mundane, direct mail. It could be digital, whatever it is. So it's feral marketing really comes into play when it's the person that is showing up in unexpected ways, somewhat similar to guerrilla marketing or tactics, but it's a lot more complex, comprehensive, long-lasting, and I believe more profitable at the end.
I would love to map some of these two examples. So you mentioned direct mail. Maybe give an example of one way in which you've seen feral marketing being used out in the wild.
Oh, all right. So let's see. Shareable experiences, I feel like, are a tremendous bit of feral marketing. Now, that's kind of on the fringe of it. But this day and age, everyone's looking for content to have the best Instagram page, right? Mm-hmm. We want to tell people that we're out there having fun and doing cool shit. So we'll use Starbucks, for example, right? Okay. Or any one of those places, in New York, the Cronut, whatever it was, when that first came into be. People would wait in lines literally around city blocks for hours. They would deal with shitty service because those poor baristas or whoever's behind the counter is sick of making whatever it is they're making, right? And they will pay a premium price for it and forgive a poor product if it tastes bad, smells funny, whatever it is, because singularly it looks awesome on their Instagram page.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So when you do that, you're not really spending any money on maybe a few ads, digital ads to promote that there's a unicorn frappuccino, now available. And everyone now is sharing that, hashtagging it, and going crazy with it. And that's the understanding, the kind of the basis of feral marketing is, one, provoking and assembling the pack, in a sense, and allowing them to do the work for you. And that kind of opens up the, the influencer marketing. But to go back to feral marketing tactics, when I owned endurance running company. It's my own training company. We were called the Were Zoo. The idea was to, evolve kind of like a werewolf, but I didn't want to pigeonhole anybody into being a wolf. If they wanted to be, a bison or a gazelle or a shark, whatever, you'd be the were version of whatever your spirit animal is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the idea behind that is totally out there. And I didn't have the money at the time to get a brick and mortar spot. I had equipment, I had, accreditations and certifications, but I didn't have the money for a classic training facility. So I didn't say, hey, listen, I'm a grassroots, operation here. Here's a flyer, I hope you join. We owned it. I was like, listen, you weren't like running. You're not going to run a race in the gym, right? The humankind, our survival is not done in air conditioning. So where we've come from is where we're going to practice, where your goal, where your finish line is going to be, that's where we're going to practice. So it's all outdoors, right? So spun it and owned it. Yeah. And of course, through communication and events, and training and free group runs, all that stuff I wouldn't consider it to be feral marketing because it's pretty done, right? We understand those patterns. So feral marketing in that sense is, I went out with some stencils and some spray chalk. Okay. And these stencils would transform. They would start out as, and I went to a very popular running trail. Okay. So the stencils would start out as running shoes, and then footprint after footprint, they would start to slowly evolve into claws, and eventually it was wolf paws that ran off of the trail. Now this is back when QR codes were really a thing, and so at the end of it, at the end of the footprint trail, I had my logo on a stake just in the grass in the bushes with a QR code, and that QR code took you to my webpage. And that got us so much traffic, that created such an emotional connection and experience and story. And at that point, I stopped having to really do any ads. I didn't run ads at that point because now the pack was assembling. We created, our logo on our shirts, and every time that we'd be out there on the running trails, among all the other, running stores that have their pace groups and they're doing it in a very calculated way, our wild ones, those are the people that were in the group, would let out howls, right? And I was coming up, I would howl to my people, and we'd hear a big howl throughout the trail. It was so cool, and that got to a point where those people in those other domesticated running groups would recognize us every Saturday or Sunday morning, and they'd be howling back, and then those people would join us. Yeah, absolutely. And so it was a whole thing. That was really the basis of feral marketing. Yeah,
really beautiful community building. I really do love that idea as far as the human footprint turning to a wolf.
Cost me $6.
It's probably even intimidating to other people.
Oh yeah.
How lateral of a thought that is. How creative an idea that is.
Of course, and this is one of the principles that I when I work with now, focus more so on real estate development, branding, coaching for the agents. And that's one thing I really try to work with them on is this, something happens to us, Justin, when we're in our commute. So we're wearing our comfy pants, elastic band or drawstring, whatever you prefer. I don't know. When you're at home, but then you put on your fancy pants, your business pants, and all of a sudden you flip the idea of what is acceptable and how to market or prospect or solicit business. And think about this. I mean, are you excited? Are you thinking about this throughout the day when you get home, or are you excited to go into your inbox and just open and read every single email you receive? Junk folder, spam folder, do you open every single email?
Well, the answer is obviously no.
Obviously no. Okay. Are you answering every single call from unknown numbers?
0 calls from unknown numbers.
0 calls. How? Okay, so perfect. So when you're wearing your comfy pants, I'm not answering my phone and I'm selective with what I open in my inbox, right? However, something miraculous happens when we put our khaki pants on and go to work.
Yeah.
Then cold calls, cold emails, that's where the magic's at. This is what you have to do, where you have to be, where you have to approach. So people get so wound up in the template that is so dated on approaching the market in that way. But again, when they go put their comfy pants on, they're not picking up their phone and they're not opening every email. And that's what just blows my mind, is that we spend so much money on these systems and all these scripts and these trainings that tell you how to leverage a great cold call script, right? But I don't care what the script is. I'm not even answering. They don't even have a chance to give me their $1 million script because I'm not answering it. You're not answering it. Hardly anybody's answering it. So that's one thing that I've worked on, and that's one thing, again, you talked about earlier, is how people get kind of wound up, or fatigued, or sometimes pet peeved or peeved at me, or people that practice this kind of feral marketing. It's because they get so tense and spend so much money on these systems because they think they have to approach in a certain way. And when some maverick, jackass, whatever they want to call that person, right, approaches it in a way that they spent little to no money but showed up in a much more impactful way, gosh, isn't that frustrating for that person that's still
this is operating on this old behavior.
Precisely.
It's almost like when we have this delineation between our personal time and our work time. We have this different sensitivity to disruptive marketing.
Right.
Not disruptive.
Well,
yes, disruptive is actually what I mean.
Yeah.
It is what I mean. The type of marketing that is taking our attention away from the thing that we're actually interested in. It's kind of why when we're scrolling through a newsfeed, we don't really like seeing ads.
Right.
And ads are actually becoming, I see this as a positive thing. As ads are becoming maybe more empathetic, more storytelling, more indistinguishable from just good. I'll use storytelling again. Good storytelling again. In some ways, it looks manipulative, and I think if you're cynical about marketing in general, and you want to look at marketing that way, you might be turned off. But I see it as a very, very positive thing. When I see something like the creative idea you had about the feet turning into wolf paws, going off the trail, and then use it as a marketing effort, that's a unique experience that I think was value added to the user. And if you're focused on creating those sorts of things, even when someone is in their comfy pants, they're not going to be so reluctant to answer that phone call or to respond to it.
Exactly. And I feel like this is appropriate to kind of bring this up now. You guided the conversation perfectly to this. And listen, I'm not someone that ever really appreciates or likes to live by, the 4 A's of success or whatever.
What are the 4 A's of success?
Exactly. The force, or these mantras, and we do this on a social level. We do this on a life, like mission statement level. We always look for words that rhyme or have great alliteration. But I feel like a lot of times those people that are writing those down are trying to force that alliteration, or these little like word plays. Like, is defense really the best offense, or whatever the thing is? Like, is it really? But it just sounds cool, right?
Yeah. Or
like, to walk through darkness is you have to have light. Like, all these like stupid, like, yeah, okay, but what's it really mean? But people believe in it, they live in it, they like it, they engage with it.
Yeah.
With that said, I actually have kind of a little float and it has to be in this order of words or principles that will produce a very profitable and effective form of communication that all just happen to start with E. Okay. So that was not.
You're not forcing any letters.
Exactly. It's just an organic thing.
Is the 4 letters going to spell something?
No. It's just E. E maybe. So yeah, they're all start with E, okay? All right, so the first thing you have to have, and this is where people always screw up, they try to go to step 2 before step 1. And you have to have an emotional connection first. And just as you said, when those runners, those people that would see those footprints and engage with it, they're a lot more open to more engagement from me when they're wearing their comfy pants, right? Because the emotional connection has been made. There has to be a reason that somebody wants to connect, engage, and develop that relationship with you or your brand, or your business, if whatever it may be. But everybody always tries to go for the education. How many awards has their firm won? Why they should know us, kind of thing. How we're going to help you do this, and this through this and this system. Yeah. And go through LinkedIn, go through your email, and the first things you're getting from these marketing agencies, because I assume you get those too.
Certainly.
Yeah, and they're talking about stuff that I don't care about.
Yeah.
I don't care at all.
You're not even specifically talking about their credentials. You're talking about.
I don't care about credentials. I don't care about getting educated. On the first time that I'm opening an email, or engaging with them in any way, I don't care about getting educated. What I care about is, why should I know them? Or, why should I know them? Why should I know their business, their firm, whatever they do? Once that emotional connection is established, that's when I will readily and happily read an entire email. That's when I'll watch a 30-minute video or podcast or whatever it is. But if I don't have that emotional connection first, Justin, I'm not going to listen to 90 seconds or even read a short paragraph about what they've got going on.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
They're coming on way too strong, too hot and heavy. And it's a whole little thing. Write this down, remember? Yeah. Remind me to go back to the E's, so I don't want to get too much up of a tangent here. That's what right? Exactly. That's what we started talking about here. But use this little visualization here. If we're at a party, okay, so let's say you and I walk into a room and we approach these people, right? Men, women, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But we just start talking about ourselves, and we talk about how we can run a 4-minute mile, and we have a great apartment, and we have all these things. We're like, blah, blah, blah. It's all you. Yeah. And then you say, well, what? Without even really having them say anything back, like, hey, what do you say? We go out, get some drinks after this. Let's go on a weekend vacation together. What do you say?
You're turned off. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. They're trying to get out of that situation. It's the same thing, but I don't understand what happens with that shift. Once you clock in, metaphorically, what is that? What happens to your mind when you're like, yeah, I should just throw up my credentials and what my agenda is all about onto these people without ever understanding what they have to go.
There's this I think misconception about what it means to be interesting. As you, in the same way that you sort of identify with a wolf, I have maybe this lateral thing. I really have this love for the most interesting man in the world. Maybe not surprised. Yeah. And I think it even took me a while to understand why I found him interesting. Okay. Or to even understand what interesting meant. And a lot of people think that being interesting means leading with things like, I run a 4-minute mile. Hey, I've got a nice apartment. Me. Look at the way in which I've climbed my own social dominance hierarchy, whatever that is. And I think we've all maybe heard this tip, but maybe we haven't internalized it enough. And the tip is this: to be interesting, you have to be interested.
Precisely.
And that conversation that you hypothetically brought up, where you talked about yourself initially, if the person would just flip that around and start with asking maybe these 2 questions: how do you feel about blank, and why are you the way you are? Yeah. What you start doing is you start being interested in that person in a way that develops a really deep, meaningful bond. And if this is something that is potentially a business relationship, those questions are going to get you to the ways in which you can serve the other person.
Right. I love that, because I feel like we're building something here. So I totally agree, and I'm all in with that. Let's take it to the next level.
Let's do it.
So we go and we ask those people, what, basically to get them talking about themselves and how, that connection is made. The one thing we have to always remember, though, is how we are entering, or when we are entering, their emotional state. Okay. So if we see, somebody at the bar or at the table, and they've just got their hair, all tussled up, and they're just rubbing their face, and all these physical signs of just having a terrible time right now, if we go up anyway and just say, hey, tell me about yourself. What it's you're gonna get a middle finger. Listen, I don't want to talk right now, right? So you have to look at those cues and understand. Okay, so I have the right marketing concept. I'm not going to just throw up my credentials on them. I'm going to try to enter at an emotional plane first to have that connection to lead to everything else. But then you have to look at, again, the emotional state. So let's use this right here. You're starting to understand I am so much about the story and metaphors and all these little tangents. But the E's, don't forget about the E's.
The E's are not
the E's. Good.
They're the top priority.
Good. All right. So the idea is, all right. Let's go to. You want to go to Mall of Millennia right now?
Let's go.
All right. Mall of Millennia. So Mall of Millennia is, for those that aren't familiar with the Central Florida area, it's a pretty big mall, right? And it's an upper end mall. And there's how many parking spaces do you think are there, Justin?
I think there are. 1,200 parking spaces.
1,200 parking spaces, okay, and that's always full, right? I mean, there's never a parking spot, okay? So it's always 1,200 parking spaces that are filled up. So let's say that you and I and then Tanner over here all come up together with this great idea for a business, right? And we know that we need to get the word out. So we make up 1,200, we'll call it 1,500 flyers, okay? Right. And we go and we work all day long, right? So 1,500 flyers, that's the most amount of flyers we ever printed, right? So this is a groundbreaking thing for us. And we go and we flyer every single car in that parking lot. We have worked all day doing this. We are sweaty, our fingers are calloused, they're black from all the dust on the windshield wipers, right? We've worked hard and we've made impressions on over 1,500 people. But when you've been in that position, Justin, when you've come in from, coming back to your car and it's raining or you're just hot or you got your arms full, and you get everything settled, and then you finally get, ready to go, and you see something flyered onto your windshield wipers.
Yeah.
You get out of your car, pissed off. You don't even look at it. You automatically assume that it's a low-budget window tinter.
Yeah. And
you toss it to the ground, never to be seen again.
You truly don't even want to look at it because that's giving them credit for the way in which they disrupt you.
Exactly. So they are entering, no matter who they are, what they do, you're assuming that they're bottom of the barrel, and they've already pissed you off in that first impression. Right, even if you happen to glance at the logo or whatever company it is. So they've entered your life in a negative way. Now, we've worked really hard. We spent money, time, energy.
Why have they given us more of their attention?
And that's where the confusion happens. That's where the confusion happens because people don't spend enough time looking at the emotional state of which they enter their demographics' lives.
Yeah. I think a little bit about this. We have a few different levels of how aware someone is to a pain point. If I'm going to Google and I'm typing in something like buy tennis shoes, I'm pretty far along in the process of knowing what shoes and ultimately going to buy them. Right. If I'm going to Google and I'm just typing tennis shoes without the word buy, the qualifying word B-U-Y, buy tennis shoes, I may be just doing a research. One step before that, I might type in something like my feet hurt. So at that point, I may be only aware of the pain I'm having, but not realizing that there is a solution called tennis shoes. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so these are the few layers here, and a lot of times we have disruptive marketing, like putting a flyer on someone's windshield, when they may be focused on some other problem, and they're not even aware of the pain point that they're trying to solve, that you're trying to solve, even if they have that pain point. Let me say that a slightly different way. Have you heard the term inbound marketing?
Yeah.
In your own words, what do you think about the term inbound marketing?
What do I think about it?
Or how would you define it maybe for our audience who hasn't heard the term before?
Inbound marketing, well, at least in my mind, is when you have more, inbound communication coming in than anything else, right? It's not so much an aggressive outbound reach. You're not making the cold calls as much. You're a recognized brand possibly or provider, right? And people are seeking you out in a sense. That's how it
that very much is it. And where I'm leading this conversation is I feel like my experience and maybe even to degree like my expertise goes up to the threshold of inbound marketing, but I think beyond that, you have insights that I don't have regarding if someone is aware of some sort of pain points. Inbound marketing is a lot like having the resources, education, web pages, etc., that answer that question. Lead them from, hey, here's your pain point. That's probably because of this reason. To solve that pain point, there are these solutions. We happen to offer one of those solutions, but also there's these other things you can do as well. So it's a very empathetic approach to marketing. It's very value first, and we're here to serve you if you need us. But it's really about knowing that we will get you the solution even if you don't buy from us. Sort of thing.
Right.
And there's one step beyond that, which is I think you're hinting at, or it feels like you're hinting at, which is the person who maybe has a pain point, but isn't actively looking for the solution yet. Mm-hmm. Maybe in some ways it's our jobs as marketers to shine a spotlight on the fact that they do have this pain point. And one bad way of going about it is something like putting a flyer on someone's car. Mm-hmm. And so the million-dollar question is, what are the ways in which we disrupt someone to let them know that they have a pain that we can solve? And from an ethics standpoint, we can solve it here if you want us.
Right.
It's kind of the question is like what is worth disrupting someone for?
Okay.
And maybe it's a philosophical question as well. So I think about this a lot. I maybe have my focus in SEO and inbound marketing because I may have an aversion to disruptive marketing. Mm-hmm. To inserting one's will into someone else.
Right.
So that they focus on you.
Right.
But on the other hand, there's a lot of us really working on solutions to help other people, and to get those solutions out, sometimes you have to disrupt. We know something like the flyers on a car is not the right way to do it.
Right.
And everything you're saying up to this point feels like the right way to do it.
Oh, that feels so right. Wow.
Perfect. There's nothing disruptive about being already on the running track. They're already focused on running. Mm-hmm. You see, you already met them where they're at. Mm-hmm. I'm not someone who just got out of mall millennia. I'm thinking about making my clothes or my recent purchases, right. And now I've got this solution to one of my pain points on my car. Mm-hmm. Instead, I'm already on a track. I'm running. I'm already thinking about running.
Right.
My focus is here. And now you're supplementing that with, hey, if you like running, here's this community that we're building around it. That might be this solution to a pain you've already had. Which, what do you think is the solution that Where Zoo offered to runners by themselves?
Yeah, so it was something that was joining a group, training for something, and understanding the demographics that really will join a running group or a club for that matter. It's usually, and this was data from I think 3 or 4 years ago, female age 30 to 42. Okay. And these aren't really necessarily elite athletes. These are more of the types that started out or believe that they are weekend warriors, right? Mm-hmm. And they're the ones that get loaded up with all these things, these products to make them run faster, run better, and stay safe, right? Mm-hmm. So approaching that, I never thought that another running group was our competition. The only competition that I saw was people that did not believe that they either had a place in a running group or that they were too fast for a running group.
Okay, I see.
So the way that I approached that was simply, understanding that emotional strategy there, and I was thinking like I'm the only person that's doing this. I got to a point to where I did have contracted coaches that would come and supplement some of the longer endeavors we went on or the runs. Mm-hmm. But it was just me. I'm like, how do I handle a scalable business by myself? And so I came up with the idea of highly individualized training in a group setting. Okay. And I designed courses and workouts that would not allow anyone to see who's the fastest or who's the slowest. Mm-hmm. So at that point, everything was based off of percentage. So we'll say that this, make it very easy, 1 lap, 2 laps around the track, okay, let's all go 60% effort. Now, I'm the type that believes 100% effort, no one's giving it until the day they die, right? Because 100% to me is everything that I possibly have and I'm dead afterward, right? Okay. So at most, I was really looking for someone to give me 85%, right? Close, vomiting, maybe some like coming out of their nose a little bit. But that was the most I was really looking to push somebody that wanted to go there. But that 85% is very different based off of your individual abilities, right? And so by not saying, all right, so here's our 5-minute mile group, here's our 15-minute mile group, let's focus on individual percentage. Mm-hmm. And again, the courses that I would run for the long run, designed for the long runs, they were either looped or they were back and forths, or they were, so you never knew, nobody ever got dropped, which is a big fear, right? I never want to be left alone in the middle of some overly wooded running trail by myself with all these literally sparkly, lights around me so I don't get hit by a car, and all of a sudden I get, bears attacking me, right? That's like the thought process, right?
And even beyond the actual fear, losing the pack is also losing the camaraderie.
Precisely, and that's why people. And there's a lot of running stores that they are trusted in their running groups, right? Because, well, as a running store, they specialize in running, so therefore they must have credible coaches, and that's where I should be.
Yeah.
However, Justin, those running stores are designed to create training programs that make you believe that you need them. The products they sell within. The shoes, the insoles, the gizmos, the gadgets, all these things. That was the antithesis, the anti-mission statement of what Where Zoo was about, because we believed that we didn't need the product. We believed in conditioning the body, the smallest muscle groups and the largest all together, and the systems there within to be the only thing that you needed. I've heard stories, and I'm sure you've heard stories too, because you've done this before as well. You've been on the courses, long courses, and you know people that have been taken out of a race they trained a year for because they took a banana gel instead of a strawberry gel. And my stomach got all upset and I gagged and I just quit the race.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, that's what took you out. Yeah. No, that's not what took you out. You wanted to be out and you use that as the escape route, right? Mm-hmm. So we took that angle, and that's actually how I got into coaching, Justin, was I worked at a running store, a very small one, and the coach that they actually had a fire 2 weeks before the program ended. So this was like a six month program. Mm-hmm. He was so bad, they had to fire him because he was criticizing people for carrying water on the trail. He was only catering to the fastest 2 or 3 out of the total 20. That's it. So they fired him, and then the owner of the running store, like, listen, Dan, we got I know that you're a pretty good runner. We have 2 weeks left. Just ride a bike next to these people and, just make sure they stay upright relatively. So that was my intro to coaching endurance sports. And with that, I discovered a much needed need. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I could coach and quench, and actually grew the business. When I sold the business, we had international people even. So here in Central Florida, there's a very big Brazilian and South American running group, people that come to our races dominate, right? But there's a big market with that. So I used to have a long commute at the running store I worked at the time. So instead of listening to the same music over and over again, I learned Brazilian Portuguese, and that's what allowed me to tap into the Brazilian running market, which at that time was booming. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I started picking virtual clients and scaled the business to that regard.
Yeah, wow, wonderful. I only recently learned this, and I don't even know the reasons behind this, but I understand that you may have just ran your last marathon.
Second to last.
Oh, second to last.
Yeah, second to last. So, do you want to talk about that?
I would actually, I'd really like to know the why behind it. As long as I've known you, mm-hmm. you've been a runner. Actually, just for the context, just so we have this on here, can you give us a little background on to what extent you've done endurance events? How many races? How many marathons?
Okay, so
and obviously we know about your big ones as well. So
right, what? We know about okay, wow. So as far as the marathon, 26.2 miles. That's 14, 15 or so of them now. Half marathons, I don't know, like 5 or 6 of them. I never. For my first marathon, I had not done anything past a 10K, so I just went from like 10K to marathon.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, total. And I was actually smoking cigarettes like through my second marathon, like actually on the course, but that's part of my lifestyle. That's fine. So I looked at it not as because I love the idea of running. I looked at it as a way to really uncover what it is to experience, to be alive, to be a human, right? What are our capabilities, and so on. So I got into running, that many marathons, that many half marathons. I've gone across the state of Florida multiple times, twice with the team, once on the lonesome, 50 milers, few of those. Yeah, so it's been endurance, and that's when I've really understood the idea that you absolutely can coach heart and gut, by the way. Well, obviously you can't, but that's really what is the driving force. It's not mental, it's not physical only, it's really mostly emotional endurance that in business, in athletics, in life, that allows you to achieve what you need to achieve. So my most recent marathon, I had not run more than 5 miles collectively in the 6 months going up to that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Really
and
wow.
And this is, it's Paul, I was thinking it's for the sake of hyperbole or for fun, but I truly exchanged glasses of bourbon per mile in what our normal regimen would be for 6 months or so leading up to that point. But anyway, it was a really big event for me in the fact that it was returning to something that I used to have sacred in my life. And I had no preparation, but of course the guy that firmly believes and led many others to develop an emotional endurance is like, all right, I am going to do this today.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if it's hard or easy. Do I want to? Do I not want to? I want to, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
And that freaking sucked. It was terrible. I mean, I hurt so much worse than even my first one. It was just terrible, terrible, terrible. But I got it done because, again, it was something that I wanted to do. And the majesty within that, and this is something I did not think of until the moment. Prior to having a family, a wife, a daughter, I would look, after I would finish the race, I would, sit in the bleachers and watch people finish, the race behind me.
Absolutely. And
you would always see the dad, the mom, whoever the parent, take their kid, hand them over the fence and run with them the last 50 feet, across the finish line. That's such a touching moment, right? Now, I didn't think about that going into it, but once I took that final turn for the home stretch, there was my daughter.
Adelaide?
And yeah, exactly, Adelaide. And I turned back around, and this is a point where, I could barely move. And so I stopped, which sucked, and you know how that feels. Went back, grabbed her, and then took her across
Maybe
the
Adelaide
finish
should
line.
carry you actually.
She very well could have. It was all blurred to me. She might have been the force taking me there, but
holding daddy's hand.
Exactly. But that is something that is always going to be a driving force with me. And again, the metaphor, the story within that is that there is so much more than we believe to our goals, right? My goal was to simply exercise the idea of doing something that I should not have been doing. And I get turned on by that kind of thing. Yeah. Once I saw that I was achieving that, then there's uncovered the deeper majesty and then the multiple meanings within that, seeing my daughter, having that moment. And again, I thought that I was done with running, but that was the moment that I had always subconsciously looked for.
Yeah, it really is beautiful. So we've covered so much already.
Yes.
And the thing I really want to get back to is we actually have 4 E's, but only 1 E has been covered.
Oh, Justin, you wrote it down. Good for you. Yes, absolutely. So the 4 E's of profitable communication. Okay. Mm-hmm. First one has to be done in this order. We seeded it before, but the emotional connection has to be there before. Otherwise, everything else is not even going to be implemented. Then the next is education. So once you have that emotional connection, that's when you can start.
I'm going to write this down as we go.
Perfect. Because it'll work for you. It'll work for you. So yes, so the emotional connection, then the education. Once you have that emotional connection, that's when people will watch a 30-minute video about who you are, what you do, or how you can do it for them, or again, read your blogs, whatever it is, right? So that's when they're now ready to be educated because they're seeking you out and what you do for them. But again, that's the principle of it, is that it's not the story of you, it's a story of them and how you supplement, how you're the supporting actor, if you will, into their role.
Have you heard of the hero's journey? That story arc?
Yes.
So a lot of times I see companies failing to recognize that the customer is the hero of the journey, and you are what would be the analogy in Lord of the Rings? Like the wizard, the wise.
You're the wizard, huh?
Yeah, we as the marketer are the wizards.
I was thinking more like a Samwise Gamgee kind of deal.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you're the one carrying the bread. You're the one keeping them kind of on track in their discovery journey with that, in a sense. But
I really do like that as well. But the point is, the customer has an initial state.
Okay.
They have some reason for change. They have some call to adventure. Mm-hmm. You've found a solution, or you've relieved the pain point in some way, and now they've returned back to the original state, better for the experience. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, the education is just, as you mentioned before, starting with credentials. Hey, here's why you should trust me. Here's why you should follow me. Right. Rather than talking about yourself, rather than talking about the other person. Mm-hmm. So we have an emotional connection. So basically, meeting somebody where they are at. I say meeting them where they're at, but how would you even give advice to someone to meet someone emotionally? Okay, so let's do this. Right now I'm working within real estate, right? Okay. This is about marketing. So let's imagine you being the active Adonis that you are, okay? And you're moving out of this phenomenal, downtown loft more to the suburb life, okay? Okay. Now imagine if you get we're going to go back to a traditional standard of marketing, right? Not on the VR and digital bandwidth here, but it's you get a piece of print mail, and on that print mail tells you the area that you might be moving to, right, or thinking about moving to, or an attractive area, right? And it's going to show you all the running trails or bike trails in that area. It's going to show you where the best places, the local places, not the Planet Smoothies, but like the where you can get a good
cup of cold pressed juice or something like that, right?
Yeah.
They're speaking to you on an emotional level. They're blending in. That's actually kind of what I call the chameleon approach within the spirit animals of marketing, is hitting them when where they want to be, what they're speaking to their interests, right? So you have that, and then of course there's your contact information, what you do, what you're about, and again, it pertains to your business. So automatically, you're showing up those same colors of that tribe. People always want to do business with people of their same tribe in a sense. So they're speaking you emotionally, and therefore you have that leg up, if you will, as opposed to all those people that are just saying, report card, report card, report card. I sold 10 homes the last 10 days. That's why you should know me. I get 50 million of those. So it's that emotional connection.
So we have emotional connection, we have education. What's our 30?
It depends on, at this point, the longevity, if you're somebody that counts on return client base or just saying one-off. But so emotional connection, education, and then engagement. Engagement is a variable in there. So if you're looking for a repeat client or clientele, you have to be engaged with them, and it has to be in ways not as a Trojan horse. So again, with real estate, it's always good to know, to remind people that you do what you do. So you maybe send them a birthday card or something, right? But if your business card is in there or a stack of them and it's just company letterhead and printed real quick, then they obviously get the idea. However, if you write a handwritten message on an actual birthday card, that's speaking to a lot more of an emotional one-off there kind of thing. So engaging, that also goes to social media too. A lot of times real estate agents will understand the value of social media. They get a Hootsuite or something that's automated, right? And they turn it out there and they're posting every single day technically, but they're not responding or engaging authentically back, if at all, with their clientele, the people that are following them. So that's a huge deal there too. So the engagement, and that's what I call basically assembling a pack of diehard disciples as opposed to the ARC mentality. The ARC is come one, come all kind of thing. I mean, technically, I guess it's 2 by 2, but let's dissolve that for a variable for a minute. But the idea is you don't want to amass everybody as your clientele, right? Because it's just too much. You have to define people that you can have that connection with, and those will be the people that will go out of their way, if you stay relevant in their life, to refer you to spread your gospel in a sense, not to get biblical here, of course. So engagement, but again, if you're in a business that is just simply one and done kind of thing, you can actually cross that one out. So emotional education, engagement, and then that one comes down to encouragement. Encouragement is the necessary step. And if you were to look at the job description or attributes of a phenomenal salesperson, you would think that persuasion is part of that, right? Description. Okay. There's evil in persuasion. It's all about encouragement. Okay, so persuasion is taking somebody, most likely attacking their pain points, grabbing them by the wrist, and then pulling them over to your side. Okay. Whereas encouragement, you have everything before emotional education and engagement, and you're encouraging them, you've armed them with knowledge, education, and everything to now where they're coming over to your side, if it makes sense for them, right? Certainly. And at that point, that's when they become one of those diehard disciples that will go out of their way to spread your story, your sphere. Last one, of course, is execution. We all know what that means, right?
Do we know what that means?
Execution. That's when the deal is done, the sale has been made. That's when the transaction has happened, right? Okay. But that's the thing, is it has to be done in that order. People always jumble it up. They put one before it, and even if you put one before the other, the whole thing is just, think of it extrapolated into an extraneous.
We're already at 5 E's now. We added.
It's done.
We added execution.
It's done. Execution is the final spot.
You started this by prefacing that some people pigeonhole their words into some sort of alliteration, and here we are just tackling on.
They just happen to be all with ease. It's just an amazing cosmic thing.
There was no deliberateness.
No, there was not. Deliberateness was not part of my equation.
I love it. Oh my god, I need to get this. Okay, so just to recap for everybody, we have emotional connection.
Has to be there first.
So that's number one. Education.
Yep.
Okay, so communicating value.
Correct.
Engagement, so not treating your audience as just another number.
Speak and listen. Yeah. This is basically what we can dumb it down to in a sense. But again, that's really only essential. Oh God, another E. If you want, again, that repeat clientele. If you're in a business model where you're just looking for those one-off customers, then that part is not as important.
I see. And then finally, not quite finally, but encouragement before execution.
Precisely.
I do like that you distinguish between encouragement and persuasion. I use the term persuasion a lot, but I also have a hard time using the term because it has some negative connotations.
Right.
I try to delineate persuasion from manipulation.
Right.
I think there's something about manipulation is the part of persuasion that kind of happens in the shadows.
But often celebrated, though, in the office, so to speak.
Often celebrated in the
Yeah,
office.
when you can come and deliver a tale of how you closed a deal, and all the hoops you had to jump through, and all the things that you had to combat them with as far as their opposition to joining your initiative in a sense. I've experienced firsthand a lot of salespeople that will, like you said, manipulate it, and then sometimes blunt the edges and try to convey products or services that you may not be able to provide them, kind of thing. So that's, again, not you, not me, not anybody that's necessarily listening to this or watching this, but that is a commonly practiced thing. I mean, just think about a salesman. When you first think of salesman, you think of shyster, right?
Yeah.
Car salesman. Why do we think of that, right? That's just, and to go back to the previous assertion of the Wolf of Wall Street, right?
That was the exact same book I agreed up to.
Nobody wants. I want that to be dissolved, obliterated, turned into a firework, and launch it out there. Like that's not what a wolf is, and that's not what a salesperson should be as a master manipulator or a snake oil, dealer or anything.
Yeah, and we have this weird situation where even if you are practicing manipulative techniques, but you're surrounded in a company culture that reinforces that sort of thing in the same way that Wolf of Wall Street was.
Right.
Certainly, closing the deal at the expense of the customer was celebrated in ways that maybe aren't as pro-social, that are maybe a little more sociopathic or pathological than we'd like to encourage our listeners to behave.
Yeah.
I think that's the sort of thing that had a certain lifespan that is going to die out increasingly as we have more transparency.
Yes.
Even with something like social media, I think it's going to be harder and harder to get away with self-serving behavior when it comes to marketing.
Sure, and I get where you're coming from that. The thing, though, that the final blow to the whole system of manipulation on the sales side, it has to, commissions, that has to end. I think commissions are dated. I think you should pay somebody on the sales side a fair and very valued, salary in a sense. Certainly. To where what they can bring home possibly to their family, to their kids, whoever's they're serving with that salary, that money. They won't be put into a position where they have to falsify, forge, or bend the truth of what the entity is behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. We really need to align incentives. For anybody listening, the best thing to look up to learn more about this is the agency problem.
Right.
Just go to Wikipedia, agency problem, to learn more about that. It's in my opinion one of the most pressing concepts everybody should learn and understand, so that we can have a more pro-social, eusocial society. Right. Everybody's getting along and acting in selfish ways that have negative externalities on other people.
Right.
So cool. So we've wrapped up some of our E's here. I want to ask you, back to your book, The Spirit Animals of Marketing. Okay. So that spirit animals is plural.
Yes.
So there's not just a wolf. No. Within the spirit animals of marketing. What other animals are in the spirit animals of marketing?
Good question. Good. All right. So there's multiple animals, as just as you've cracked the code of the majesty of the S at the end of a word. There's good and the bad. So we've already talked about the wolf. We've talked briefly about the chameleon, right? They can blend in. Yeah. It's kind of basically, to summarize it really quickly, it's like Coca-Cola, right? So what do polar bears, NASCAR, and EDM or extreme sports all have in common? Nothing, except for the fact that Coca-Cola does a great ad campaign that immediately speaks to those people, the sentimental and sometimes more feminine, or just whatever it is. Polar bears, here's a Coke, right? They're not selling a product, they're selling the idea, the vibe of a product, the emotional connection of a product, right? NASCAR, more masculine, summer sports, whatever it is. So they are blending in with that demographic, and that demographic now understands that they are, wearing their same tribal colors. Yeah. So it's a quick one and off, not as a long-term engagement as the wolf, but at the same time, the chameleon has the ability to stand out. They can change the pigmentation of their scales, and instead of blending into a blue wall, now it's fuchsia, that little chameleon there, right? And then that goes into the idea of, again, if it's authentic, standing out, and people will adore you if you're authentic and able to stand out, because that's interesting to them, right? People love interesting. That's the idea of the chameleon. Then there, of course, is the anglerfish. That is
the deep sea one that has
very deep sea, exactly. And the little light that flicks, right? Exactly. So
I'm pretty sure it was in Finding Nemo too.
Precisely. Yes. So Finding Nemo, that's where it was. It's also all
Planet Earth. Yeah,
Planet Earth. It's everywhere, Justin. And let me tell you this. And don't get worried. Don't get scared. Yeah. Anglerfish are all around us, even here on land.
Oh my God, metaphorically?
Yes. So the idea behind the anglerfish is if something's too good to be true, then it most likely is, at the sake of course, the public, the consumer. So anglerfish, of course, dingles that very elusive and very novel source of light, and where no light really shines. Yeah. And those little fish swim up to it because it's so unique. And then all of a sudden, behind it, there's a briar patch full of teeth closing in on them, and then they're done. Right. Yeah. Clickbait also. Clickbait's also another form of the anglerfish. So you've all seen it before at the end of your article that you read online. You won't believe what this Mississippi bride did at the altar. Click here to find out, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then it's this never-ending tail rabbit hole of clicks. Screens pop up, all this crazy shit. So that is again representing something that is too good to be true in a more concrete context. Simply, if you've been somebody that prides yourself on communication with your clients, and you did not return their phone call or their email in what would be recognized as a okay amount of time, you might just be an anglerfish because you're presenting something, selling them on something, especially in real estate. So there's surveys all the time done on the consumer side of what does somebody look for in a real estate agent. And you would think number one would be selling the home. That's actually number 3 or 4 on the list. Number 1 is marketing. Go figure. 2 is communication. 3 or 4 is actually selling the home in itself. So communication is very, very important, right? So again, that's how you can become the anglerfish. But if you've not returned every phone call or email or text, and you find yourself as an anglerfish, don't worry, there is a cure. You can recover from that, okay? So that's another animal in the the second to last one, the lioness. Not the lion, it's the lioness. And we always think, and I don't understand.
They play such different roles.
Roles. So, and it's always the lion, the male lion, that is celebrated when, in quotes and beliefs. Now listen, I understand there are some cultures and pseudo-religious types of mentality where the lion is more sacred. So this is nothing that is attacking that per se, but just simply the activity of a male lion is not what most people think. Male lion sleeps about 22 hours a day.
He sleeps about 22 hours a day?
Correct.
Oh my God.
He doesn't hunt. Mm-hmm. His job is just simply to defend if he is challenged, and will sometimes defend the pack behind, or the pride behind him.
Certainly.
It's the lioness that goes out there and does what we think is a lion's duty. She navigates, she hunts, she brings it back, gives her fair share to the lion and the rest of the pride, and then she eats last. So that sounds like, to me, influencer marketing. When you trust somebody to go out, deliver the message of your brand, to execute what you need them to execute, navigate, through their channels and their game trails, if you will, through the savannah, and then bring it back to you, bring the profits back to you. Now, the lion's not completely out of the picture in this. To be the lion is to be the major corporation, that is implementing these strategies and the abilities of influencer marketers. But it's tough to do because that is your baby. The idea of you're now trusting your image, your brand, your business with somebody else, and they might be so opposite, which is most likely the case, as to why you're trusting them to be the influencer as opposed to yourself, because you might be out of touch. You know what I mean? So they can speak to an audience.
Speaking of the lion who represents the brand.
Precisely.
Okay.
So that's activating the lioness, the influencer, the one that will do the majority of the work, but you are there to defend.
We'll do the lion's share of the work.
Precisely, Justin. This is why I'm glad we're here, man. And then lastly, it's seriously, now I'll wrap it up real quick, the apex spirit animal of marketing, it seriously is the human. And the reason why is because we have the unique ability to separate the red line, the alerts going off within us, and push forward. So being an Ironman yourself, you've seen, you may have experienced the sensation of crossing the finish line and collapsing, or seeing people that turn to jelly legs as soon as they cross the finish line. Now, if that finish line had been 10 feet further, do you think they would have collapsed prior, or do you think they would have made it to the finish line and then collapsed then?
Made it further and collapsed then, yeah.
Precisely. So it isn't that jelly legs, the cement legs, whatever you want to call them, didn't happen in that finish line shoot. It probably happened 40, 50 miles back.
Yeah.
But they fought through it. That doesn't happen in the wolf, the lion, or any really other animal out there. If, let's go back to the wolves, if those bison, secretly joined like a CrossFit or, gym or something, and all of a sudden develop these abilities to outrun the wolf and outsmart the wolf, right? Mm-hmm. Those wolves aren't going to persist on those bison and to the point of dying. Once their alarms going, you're overheating, you're fatiguing, mm-hmm. those wolves will back off and they'll go hungry that night.
Help me map that to marketing.
Sure. So marketing, obviously most marketing is done by humans, Justin. That's something that is not known, but most marketing is done by humans. And so the driver, the impetus. Is it the?
I'll know after you continue.
Perfect. Fact check that. Asterisk. But anyway, the driving force behind that is the human initiative, the effort, the abilities to be. So with marketing, are you looking for a specific example per se of a marketing strategy with the human?
Or in the same way you were able to map the chameleon to Coca-Cola, mm-hmm. I would love to get an idea of how something like recognizing a finish line and then reframing.
I got you.
Maps marketing.
This is going to go way back to just that tired door-to-door salesman selling vacuum cleaners or whatever, right? Yeah. Now he's only got 3 or 4 vacuum cleaners to sell. Or she may have, but back in the 40s or 50s when this was popular, it was most likely a he. So knowing that they only have 4 to sell, they probably have to knock and go into and demo, probably 60, 70, 80 houses, right? Yeah. So it's that tenacity, that ability to try to present your best self. Now, again, that type of methodology, I don't always believe as far as the structure or the bullet pointed principles in that approach to marketing or salesmanship. However, the unyielding force to move forward, even when the sun is set and your knuckles are calloused. That would be, I guess, the metaphor in the human spirit of marketing.
Okay, I can certainly expect that. I can certainly accept that, and you certainly think very high of human as far as I'm concerned.
It surprises me that I do, but I do. It's because again, it's just you have the ability, you are enough, and once you realize that.
I've heard plenty of people say that their spirit animal is this, their spirit animal is that, spirit animal is this. I haven't heard anybody say my spirit animal is a human.
Interesting, right?
And maybe we need more of that.
I think so.
Yeah, you brought up already my experience with endurance mm-hmm. events as well too. Mm-hmm. I've had my own share of heartbreak out on the course. Mm-hmm. I've had my own share of demotivation. I've had my own share of not just in training, but actually on the course. Right. I think we all have our own whys for why we do it. We all have our own things that drive us, mm-hmm. even under the overwhelming pressures to just quit.
Sure.
And Dan, like what you've done it at such a high caliber, at such a an exceptional level when you're doing things like for those of you who don't know, what's the Goofy Challenge again?
Oh, that was a half and a full marathon back to back, Saturday and Sunday. Basically. Yeah, so running that 2 days in a row.
They have a 5K before that too.
Disney's mastered this whole thing, right? And they've created a high priced and awesome medal for every event. So now these poor people are running from like Wednesday to Sunday, 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon.
Loving every minute of it.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So in the lowest parts, we've all been there. Not just in running, not just in endurance events. What keeps you going?
That's a really good question, and it's understanding these separation between mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. Setting an objective and attaching it to something outside of you is the only way that you will win with that, basically. And I'll explain. So if I were to go out there and do a marathon, and I've done this before, or my first 2 attempts at the 50-mile distance, I did it because I wanted to say that I could cross that 50-mile line.
I see.
Made it, 20, 30 miles, and then I tapped out because my ankle was breaking, my diaphragm was, spasming, all these things happened, right?
In his defense, you were running through a trail in the woods.
This is Memorial Day, and it's swampy, palmetto, sugar sand.
I want everybody listening to really just understand what an animal Dan Pacheco is. This man is on another planet, out of this world. But continue.
I appreciate that, Justin. But the idea is, my first successful attempt, and also least trained for 50-miler attempt, was the one that I completed. And at that point, before that, I decided to dedicate every single mile to somebody meaningful in my life. Nothing that had to do with me, not weight loss, not cooler hair, not a better car. Mm-hmm. It was 50 people externally, of course, that meant something to me, right? And at that point, I knew that if I made it to mile 30, that I'd be letting 20 people down. And if you structure it, whatever works for you, sometimes you can just randomize the list, but more often than not, you save the last 2 or 3 miles for the most, important people in your life. And so you definitely don't want to let them down, right? And this is the funny thing with endurance sports, or even with efforts in business, marketing, life, whatever it is, you know why you don't deserve it. You know your darkest secrets. You know the things, the terrible things you may or may not have done. You know those more than anybody else knows those about you. And so once things start spinning, once the red alarms start going off inside, you justify that saying, I don't deserve this right now. Now, whether it be on the front of your mind or the back of your mind, that's what the driving force is, the darkness there. When you understand that you've attached that, even told that person that you're dedicating this mile to them, or that milestone, that's when you will vomit dirt up if you have to. That's when you will run to where you have no feet left, or your feet are so small. That's when you will do anything, whatever it takes to get it done in their name. So living outside of yourself, attaching goals outside of you to people that mean something to you in your life. That is what got me through my first 50. That's what got me through traveling what was literally twice around the planet Earth. Yeah. In a short period of time, having to play peekaboo with my daughter through FaceTime. Yeah. All that stuff is because I knew that the goal was attached to something else, something of her benefit, my daughter's benefit, my wife's benefit, my family's benefit. Yeah. That's what got me there.
There's an African proverb that I really like. Okay. That I only got introduced to recently, but really means a lot to me. I think for a long time I made the mistake of not realizing that the purpose of it is doing it for others, right? Doing the service of others. And the African proverb goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I love that.
I like that too. I think anybody that knows you, Dan, knows that the ways in which you are extroverted, the ways in which you are comfortable in your own skin, the ways in which you express yourself are probably honestly enviable to a lot of people. People who may be fearful to the idea of being too vulnerable, being too much of themselves. Yeah. It seems to me that you've been comfortable in your own skin, or at the very least pretending to be comfortable in your own skin for a very long time. Sure. It comes off very naturally, it comes off very authentic. And what could you possibly say to someone who wants to see you leading by example and follow your lead?
That's a really, really, really great question, because that the why to that is something that's very important to me and very important into communicating effectively with others. And that's basically the answer. So I was very shy as a kid, and in a lot of settings, I still am very shy. To give you a quick little tidbit, I was so shy and played so much by the rules, disrespect to anything that, bent from the rules. In kindergarten, when you have stations, right? You have a listening station, painting station. That's just a way for the teacher to manage smaller groups of kids, right? So we had station day, and my station at the time was in the back, farthest corner of the room, right? And it was a little audio station. So there were 3 of us there sitting on these little rubber mats and listening to a tape. And I really, really, really had to go pee, right? And well, of course you have to raise your hand before anything. You certainly can't get up without permission. And so the teacher's not saying, you can't shout, right? Because you can't yell inside. So all of these things led me to trying to hold it as best that I could. But I could not hold it anymore, and I peed my pants. And it was mortifying for me at that time. Yeah. And I was so embarrassed that I did not want to tell anybody, right? Certainly. So I just went around from station to station with soaked little jean shorts and spread pee all over the room. Yeah. And of course it was found out, right? It doesn't take
as these things get found out.
Yeah. I got found out, my first scandal. And then I got sent to the front, not the office, but the clinic, right? When there's always an emergency pair or outfit, right? In case you really did something, well, I guess like that. And mine, it just got worse. Now I totally rock and own it, but at the time, again, it was very conscious.
Now we can be unapologetic about it.
Right, but it was just a pair of just like really rough fabric, cheap, like pseudo Hawaiian print shirt and shorts that my grandparents have got me like 2 years ago. So it didn't fit. I was a hefty kid. And it just wasn't flattering, wash me out, just all these terrible things, right? So it was just a terrible, terrible day. And that was kind of the mentality, the gist of how, just much I wanted to play by the rules, right? The fact that I pissed my own pants and still not telling anybody about it. With that said, growing up, moving around so many times, I went to 5 different elementary schools, lived in so many different states, met so many different types of people, that allowed me not to reinvent myself, but to kind of just shift and rearrange and present something new. And as I got into middle school, as I got into high school, that's really when I came into just simply being, myself and being okay with that. And after, I did over 53,000 miles traveling around in an 18-month span, meeting with people in real estate, talking about marketing, branding, developing all these great things. Yeah. Now that I'm off the road with that and out of the spotlight on a regular basis, I'm finding myself wanting to become more of that creative introvert again. And not so much to go out to mixers, events, be on stage anymore, because it's kind of shifting back. And I'm discovering now that's always been a part of me. However, the reason that I've kind of started getting into the spotlight, and the reason that I will still be there as long as it is willing to be shown upon me, is because I believe that everybody has a brand, therefore everybody has an audience. I don't care how polarizing your viewpoints are, there is a group of people that will be your audience. And I hate the idea of people having to package themselves and temper down their personality for the sake of being an easy grab and go 12-ounce version of themselves off the shelf, right? Yeah. But depending on the profession that we're in, depending on who we are in life, we have to play by the rules. Yeah. And at what point did we all decide that gray, olive, earth tones, black is professional, that chartreuse is not professional, that tattoos somehow, are a symbol of the devil? Like, when did all this start? How did that get decided?
Certainly.
And so my objective in doing what I do at any level is to help people realize that, one, they have a brand. If they're able to be authentic, they will often be adored for it, right? To go back to that whole scenario in the room, the stuffy room, and, we're approaching people and getting shut down. Imagine if somebody, we just, heard the sound of something outside in the valet, and we go out there and we see this monster truck jump over, the curb. It's blasting AC/DC. This person gets out dressed in, hot neon, whatever it is, tosses the keys to the valet, strolls in. They haven't said a word to anybody. They don't fit in that scenario. They shouldn't be here in the confines of what is acceptable to be here. But damn it, do we want to at least have a conversation with them, right? Because they are being themselves. They may not fit in, but damn it, they have the attention. And that's what marketing, that's what business is. It's all about. You can have whatever you need. Spend as much money as you can on systems things. But if you don't have attention, you don't have a damn thing. So when you're able to do that, my reason is to help uncover people within that. I firmly believe that there is no transformation. We do not need to be more. That's always a thing, a transformation Tuesday, whatever it is. And that creates that idea within us that we have to always be more. But imagine, just meditate on this for a moment, and you too, Tanner, to think about this, that you are enough right now. Everything that you need, you don't have to go and learn more, do more. I mean, learning, of course, is good, but you don't have to go to an $800 seminar to have a Tony Robbins type, come and put something in you. Like, no coach, guru, they're not going to put anything inside of you. If they're a good one, they're going to help uncover what's inside of you. But no one's putting anything inside of you. So everything that you have done, that you will ever do, the ingredients are already within. And you don't need to transform. You just simply need to uncover. We have these beautiful gemstones inside of us that have so much sediment around them. Some people more than others. But we still have that at the center of it. So just uncovering that, allowing yourself to shine. That's why I do. That's what I do.
Really beautiful sentiment. So a couple short fire rapid questions. The first one is, how do you consume most of your media? Book, podcasts?
Most of my media comes down from scanning the article for videos, right?
Scanning the article for videos?
Yes, I'll get a headline, interests me. If I see there's more than 5 paragraphs, I'm not going to read that really, most likely. I'm just looking for a video that summarizes it all up.
That's more for new stuff.
Well, okay.
Do you if you were proactively going out and looking for some sort of entertainment, like in the same way that someone would read a book,
okay,
or someone would go to YouTube to look for content, what's your preferred medium for that?
Podcast.
Absolutely. Okay, perfect. Then leads to my next question. What podcast are you listening to right now that you would love to recommend to anybody listening?
Oh, this is going to go in a different way that you think, Justin, because I don't really know. I just scan for subjects. And I'm not loyal to any one specifically. I am looking strictly for that interesting subject in a unique viewpoint. I think I call it the Groupon mentality. That's really dissolved the loyalty to a lot of services, spas, for example. You're just looking for the cheapest rate. And perhaps when we put hands on you in a relaxing way. Do you go about this way? Do you go about searching for these podcasts with a subject already in mind, or? Nope. It's totally whatever hits me first. And that is kind of sometimes, I believe so much in duality. Sometimes that's how I am, with every aspect of my life, flippant, quick, take it as it is. And then a lot of times it's the other side, predetermined, planned, structured. So, yes. All right. Do you want to do 2 more questions to wrap it up? No. Let's actually we'll wrap up there. I think that was actually a good ending. Okay. Dan, thank you so much for coming over. Thanks so much for speaking with me for this extended period of time. I really am heartbroken that I couldn't ask you more questions. I think I would love to have you back. But your insight is always valuable. Your charisma is contagious. And I hope that everybody listening gets something out of this. I know I certainly did. I really appreciate that, Justin. And thank you so much for this opportunity. It's always a pleasure with you. Appreciate it. All right, guys, that's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any feedback at all, please feel encouraged to leave it down in the comment section below. I do read it, and I do want to know the ways in which we can improve the show for you. If you liked it and you know somebody else who would find value in watching the show, please do share it with them. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, support us in any way you feel. Otherwise, we'll see you next episode. Thanks for watching.